All right, hey guys, today we are learning compound inequalities. This is day 1 of day 2. So we are going to just start off with some warm-up problems. So there are 4 warm-up problems. Go ahead and pause this video and do these 4 warm-up problems for me, please. Okay, so you can do 2 things. You can either divide by -7. I'm going to distribute first. So we're going to get -7 plus 28n is greater than 189. Add 7. So 28n is less than, I think I said greater than earlier, but less than 196. And then divide by, ooh, that looks all sorts of jumbled. Divide by 28, we keep the sign, and that's going to get me 7. It's an open circle on 7, and it's going to the left towards the smaller numbers. Let's try number 2. Distribute that 7 first. Combine like terms. Subtract the 56. Divide by 50 and 7 again. This time though it's a closed circle. And 7 is greater than, so it's going to the left again. All right, let's look at number 3. Number 3. Distribute. Move the 6n over. Oh, actually, you know what? Instead of doing that, instead of adding 4, what I'm going to do is I recommend always moving the variable over first. I always move the smaller of the 2 variables because then we're dealing with positives and we don't have to worry about flipping our sign, because that makes life a lot easier. And then also if we ever have special cases, because there will be special cases, of course. So -2, open circle, -2 is greater than, goes to the left. And number 4, just do it down here. Skip that step, so I distributed and just kind of skip that step there. And I'm going to subtract the 7r first. -8 is less than, yep, so it goes to that way. Okay, so there is our warm-up. So make sure you guys understand this, because obviously as we go, it gets more and more complicated, as you remember probably with equations, and compound is going to be different. So let's start off with our vocab words. So compound inequality. An equation with two or more inequalities and are joined together with an and or an or. Okay, so you're going to see and may be different because it may not have the word and, but that means they're going to be together. So we're going to have two inequalities that we're going to end up graphing two separate inequalities pretty much. And then from those two separate inequalities, you're going to have two graphs on one, and then we talk about where they overlap and where they don't. So, which is kind of what we're getting to. So an intersection, okay, that is the overlap parts of the graph. Okay, these are always going to be and problems. Okay, so when we talk about intersection, that is going to be our and problems. And union, this is two inequality graphs. On the same number line. And they don't overlap. Okay, so that means that these are our or problems. Okay, so that's our vocab for today. So compound inequality is what we're doing today and tomorrow. And then intersection is where they overlap, and union is where they don't. So it's going to be literally two completely separate inequalities on one graph. So we're going to get started now. And so number one, and I think we're just doing it, we're going to probably just do and problems today, so you guys get used to seeing and problems. And problems have a tendency to be a little trickier. I recommend if you have two colors, use two colors to graph these because it will make life, actually three colors, it will make life easier, or two colors that would turn into ones like red and blue where they overlap, and it'll be purple. So we're going to start off. So it says and, we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to start with this. We're going to start with this equation. So we have 6v is less than or equal to 0. Divide by 6. So we get v is less than or equal to 0. Now that is a closed circle on 0. And it's going towards the smaller number. So I'm going to draw an arrow this way. So that's the first inequality. My second inequality is going to be this one. And we get negative 6 plus v is greater than negative 7. Solve this one just like we would. And then this one is an open circle, and it's going this way. So this is an and problem, and they should overlap. They do overlap, which is a good thing. So since they overlap, we need to shade actually where they overlap. So your final answer is the open, -1 is the open circle, shading where they overlap, and it actually ends at 0. So really, when we talk about this, that is my answer right there. Okay, but you guys are new, so I want you to still kind of get used to drawing and all of that stuff. Now, number 2, there isn't the word and or, but because these are together, this is an and problem. So when we put two inequalities next, like literally in the same problem, it's an and problem. So what you do is you start, my first inequality, you start at the end, and you go all the way to the second inequality sign. So there is my first inequality. And then my second inequality, you're going to start after the first inequality and go all the way to the end. So they should both have that middle part in their thing. And if you notice, they do right here and here. They both have the exact same thing, n plus 5. If you don't put both those as the exact same thing, then you're going to do something wrong. So now let's get started by solving. So we'll start with our red one again. Subtract 5. Subtract 5, that gives me negative 8 is less than or equal to m. And then minus 5, minus 5. M is less than 4. Now, when we have where we separated them, you have to put them back together. So in order to put them back together, we kind of flip this, or we keep this together. So these m's kind of get smushed together. It only becomes one m. So it becomes negative 8. The smaller number is always on the left, is less than or equal to m, which is less than 4. Okay. Now before I graph, I do want to also show you that you don't have to necessarily separate them. So if I rewrite this problem, negative 3 is less than or equal to m plus 5, which is less than 9. You can actually solve this all as one problem. You just have to remember. So, actually I'm going to do this in green. So what we do is we look at what's being added to the m. So it's this 5. So we're going to subtract 5. And we get negative 8 is less than or equal to m, which is less than 4, which ends up being the exact same answer here. It's just important to know that as we get more and more complicated in the middle section, it becomes a little bit harder, but you have to do it to 3 sides ultimately. So if you like to separate, that's fine. If you like to keep it together, that's fine. Remember, guys, there's multiple ways to do it. Just make sure you're showing me all of your work. So now let's graph this. So now I have negative 8, which is a closed circle. So negative 8 is less than or equal to m. Oops, my closed circle disappeared. So that goes this way. And 4, open circle, goes this way. Highlight where they overlap. And so that's where your final answer is. So let's look at number 3. And I'm going to keep these ones together. So in this case, I got k divided by 5, so I'm going to multiply by 5. Now what you multiply, you have to do technically times 3 or both sides. So we're going to get 0 is less than k, which is less than or equal to 5. Open circle at 0. And it goes this way. Closed circle at 5. Goes this way, and they overlap here. All right, so go ahead and pause this video and try number 4 on your own. And then because these are separate, we do, if they use the word and, we're going to leave the word and in there. So negative 3. And there we go. So that's what your answer should look like. All right, now we're throwing 2 steps. So that was 1 step in the middle. Now we're going to have 2 steps there. So not much is different, guys, with the 2 steps. Okay, so we're now going to go ahead and rewrite this. So negative 12 is less than negative n minus 2, which is less than or equal to negative 3. I'm going to do it both ways where we can actually separate them too, so you guys can see this for those of you that struggle. You're going to start off with that adding 2 to all 3 sides. So negative 10 is less than negative. Remember that's technically negative 1n, for those of you that forgot. Divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. Now because you divided everything by negative 1, that means all of my signs are going to flip. So now we have 10. 10 is greater than n. closed circle on 1, and it's greater than 1. They overlap here. Okay. And then if you wanted to separate them, you would get negative 12 is less than negative n minus 2. Divided by negative 1. And then we'll do the other one in green. Negative n minus 2 is less than or equal to negative 3. So you guys can kind of see how it really doesn't matter. And then obviously we put those together and that will get you that, and same graph. Okay, so let's try this one. So we have 7p plus 1 is greater than negative 34. Add 9. We're dividing by a negative in this case, so don't forget to flip. And your answer is where they overlap. And then don't forget to put those two answers together. So p is greater than negative 5 and p is less than 1. All right, so what I want you to do is go ahead and pause this and do 7 and 8 on your own. And I'm going to keep them together. If you have trouble and you separate them and you can't figure out where your mistake is, come and shoot me an email or come see me and I'll gladly help you out. There you go. Then my overlapping is right here. Now be careful with shading, guys, because something that will happen is some of you will color in that negative 8 circle and then it'll look like it's a closed circle, and obviously you don't want to lose points for something that silly. All right, so the next two we're going to do is now where we have variables on both sides, because y not, because I have to mess with you as much as possible. These ones I do highly recommend separating because I can totally see you guys getting confused. I'll do this again where I do it where it's together and then it's separate. I'll start off with it separate. So we have 9x minus 9 is less than or equal to 7x plus 3. And then I'll do this one as 7x plus 3 is less than or equal to 8x plus 7. And then I'll do them all together. So it's less than or equal to, yep. All right, so let's get started with the light blue and then we'll go from there. Okay, so now we're going to have to write these together. So when you do write these together, you should always put the smaller number on the left and the bigger number on the right. So it's going to be -4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 6. So there is your final answer. Now let's see if it works, and it will, when you do it all as one. So now with this one, oops, wrong color. We're going to start off by subtracting 3. I don't know if you can keep these together, actually. No, you can't keep these together. So this one is one that you can't keep together, and then you have to rewrite it. So actually, I lied. So make sure you know how to separate them, because that way you can get that right, because otherwise it won't always work that way. All right, 10. 10 is a break apart one. It's already broken apart, so that makes our life 10 times easier. So we have 3n plus 2 is greater than or equal to -10n plus 7n. And then we have 4n, then we're going to add 10. So we get 12 is greater than or equal to 4n. Divide by 4. So you get 3 is greater than or equal to n. Add the 7n. Subtract 5. So we get 3 is greater than or equal to n, and n is greater than -10. 3 is a closed circle, and 3 is greater than, so we're going towards the smaller numbers. N is greater than -10, open circle, this way. And then there you go, shade and overlap. All right, so now what I want you to do is go ahead and do these two on your own. Pause the video and do them on your own. So we have negative 5 is less than x, which is less than or equal to negative 3, because the smaller number always goes on our left. Negative 5 is open. Goes that way. Negative 3 is closed. Goes that way, and they overlap here. All right, let's do the next one. Goes that way. Five is open and it goes that way. They overlap here. So you can actually write these together if you choose to, or you can just write it with the word and. So remember, the only time you can actually write it with the word and is when I give you and in the problem. If I put them together, you have to keep them together. All right, so that is today's notes. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me, shoot me an email. I'm here to help you guys. I want to answer any questions because this can get confusing. Let me know. Have a great day. Bye-bye.